What do you do if you want to draw loose and expressive, but you also want to capture the detail that you see and draw with accuracy? In this video, I'm going to give you some advice about what's actually the most important thing to get accurate in your drawing, and how to balance your expressive drawing style with clear and precise attention to detail in order to make a finished drawing. Welcome to my studio. My name is Siobhan. I share videos about a dynamic and expressive approach to drawing the figure. Each week I post tips and techniques for drawing, and I share my own process. So if you're interested in learning how to draw the figure, then subscribe so that we can stay in touch. Today's video is a process of this drawing based on this photo reference. Initially, I really wanted to make a very loose and gestural drawing. But of course, I ended up drawing something much more closely studied and detailed. The process, though, was continually responsive, and I really tried to keep that impression of movement within the drawing and the approach as much as possible. I'll leave a link below to the exact photo reference if you want to draw as well, and let me know if you do make a drawing of this. Tag me on Instagram at drawinglife.io. I'd love to see your work and see your take on this reference image. I have 3 tips for you for drawing in an expressive way, but keeping a focus on detail. Before we start though, I just wanted to mention I'm drawing on Fabriano paper. And last week I made a video where I talked about the kind of paper that I like to draw on when I'm making a more finished drawing, rather than, quick gesture drawings. So if you want to check out that video, I'll leave a link to that below as well. My very first tip when it comes to balancing a loose, expressive approach to drawing, but you want to capture more careful detail, is to start out as light as possible and keep your drawing as light for as long as possible. The temptation really is to start drawing the details immediately, or even, to start drawing the outline of the figure carefully, or try to make placements of things and everything like that. But my advice is don't do that, because especially if you're drawing from observation, if you're not using a grid, then you're likely going to want to change things around and move things around as the drawing progresses. I think for this drawing, I spent maybe 70% at this very light, almost nothing kind of a stage. And it was only a really short time actually drawing detail and rendering. I know most people will tell you to block in your shadow shapes, make, maybe envelopes, establish values, all that kind of thing. But for me, I find that doing that ties me down into details way too early. I prefer to make loose marks that may or may not be correct, but it feels like I'm finding the pose intuitively. And I also find that this approach is far less intimidating to me than drawing precise lines and establishing correct shapes and proper values. Again, this is different to what others will tell you. This is just my way of approaching it. I like to keep drawing the gesture that I see and that I feel within the forms over and over until I start to see the figure emerge on the page by itself nearly. And that leads me to my second tip on how to achieve accuracy, and that is, what to actually focus on in order to get an accurate drawing. When it comes to accuracy, we immediately think of the anatomy and getting those anatomical details like muscle shapes exactly right, especially in a photo like this. I mean, the anatomy is so prominent, it's very much at the forefront of the impression, the overall impression or look of this image. But I always avoid drawing with a focus on anatomy simply because when I do, I find that a focus on that makes the drawing really dense and heavy. One of the things that I think is much more important to get correct, over and above getting anatomy rendered like a medical book, the one thing is angles. And this pose was one of the most challenging poses to draw in order to get those right. Now, what I mean by angles is the tilt or the twist or, the turn of the body throughout the pose. In this example, if you get the angle of the back wrong, the whole drawing is off. If you get the angle of the arms wrong in relation to the back, the whole drawing is off. I'm sure that I got the muscle shapes wrong or that, I didn't capture them correctly, but the final drawing doesn't feel off because of that. I think by diving into drawing anatomy, putting the focus solely there, and especially if you do that at the beginning, you'll nearly always be guaranteed to get those crucial angles wrong. So you might end up with a very detailed drawing of the muscle shapes, but you'll be wondering why your drawing feels off, and it's because the angles of the pose are wrong. I would say spend as much time as possible to work out those relationships of forms, the angles, the directions. Make sure they're right first, and that will give you a solid foundation to achieve accuracy. And my third tip is to actually consider what it is you're trying to capture in your drawing. That is really going to help you to balance the scales between expression and detail. I think too much expression in a drawing like this one would have been overkill. It might actually end up not being that interesting as a drawing. Whereas too much focus on muscles and anatomy would make it dull and pedantic. I think this is a pose, or it's a photo anyway, that has equal amounts of emotion or feeling as it does physicality. So I'd encourage you to look at your reference, whatever it is, and think what is it that you want to capture. What to me was more prominent in this image than the muscles on the guy was the lightness and the movement. I think the model looks like he's floating. It's almost like he's moving from one pose into another, like an in-between sort of fleeting moments. And I felt that was very important to try and capture that, as well as important as the details. Whether I succeeded in capturing that movement or not, I don't know. But at least by keeping that in mind, I felt like I wasn't making outlines of heavy muscles, and I was continually trying to draw with a sense of movement and being aware of what parts of the drawing need a lighter touch. I really hope these points are helpful to you, and if you've got any questions about this drawing in particular or about the process, please leave them below. And also do let me know if you make a drawing from this photo reference. I'd love to see your work. So thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you as always for supporting this channel. It really means a lot. Let me know how you get on with this drawing. If you have any other tips to share about how you try to balance expressive drawing with more accurate details, please leave a comment below. Please give this video a like if you think it's worthwhile, and definitely subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.